is a presentation of Fox Sports.
We are Blackmore. We are MC.
The Royals offense is alive and well. In game one with first place Chicago, the Royals scored 7 runs, with Brett Eibner getting his first big league hit and scoring his first run. Whit Merrifield driving in his first big league runs, and the youngest of the 3, Eric Hosmer, driving in 4. With a win today, the Royals could move into a first place tie. Game 2 is coming up next. There is only a 15% chance for rain today. How about that as the Royals go for the series with the Chicago White Sox? And Royals baseball is presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the ballpark with Rex Hudler. I'm Ryan Lefevre. The Royals and White Sox are heading in opposite directions. If the Royals can win today, they would win 5 straight series. If the White Sox lose, that would be 6 consecutive losing series, and Yordano Ventura will make the start, his 2nd straight start against the White Sox.
It's going to set the tone. I just got that feeling, just like Danny Duffy's tone last night, even though that 1 inning. Look, forget that. We want quality strikes. And in the zone with all 3 pitches, he can do it. He's got them.
And early on, we were praising him quite a bit for the use of his breaking ball and his changeup, but it seemed like he got a little bit away from his fastball, at least fastball velocity, and that's been back in his last 2 starts.
Royals fans are getting spoiled with guys that throw 95 plus. Duffy, now Ventura, that's a plus pitch. You can use that a majority of the time. You try to keep it out of the middle, but if you don't, you still can blow it by him. But this has been the weapon for him. This curveball has been very special. Opponents only hitting a $104 off of it, and nobody's taking him deep with it. So look, he's got 3 pitches that can do the job. If he can just execute in that strike zone, should be good.
Speaking of new weapons, last night Kelvin Herrera broke out a curveball, a slow breaking ball. Joel and Monty will talk about that when we come back.
At Kauffman Stadium as the Royals try to win another series against the White Sox. The bullpen now 21-0 when leading after 7 innings for the Royals. Joel Goldberg, Royals Hall of Famer Jeff Montgomery. That was tested last night. 2 on for Kelvin Herrera. And a 1-run game, and he got the job done. How did he do it?
Well, really big situations seem to bring out the best in Kelvin Herrera. Here we're going to go. Really critical part of the game last night. He needs an out. He needs a strikeout. He sure enough is going to get it against Abreu. He's introduced his slider this year, and it is an excellent slider. The one we see the strikeout on, he took a little bit off, almost looked like a curveball, and then he's got Adam Eaton up in a situation, very aggressive as a pinch hitter, wanting to do some damage, and he goes soft. He goes with a changeup to get the big strikeout.
So the slider and the changeup got the job done for Kelvin Herrera, and Whit Merrifield, jack of all trades, getting the job done for Ned Yost. More on his versatility next.
Rusty Kuntz, and that's because Whit will play in left field today against the White Sox. Last night, playing at second base. He had his 4th consecutive multi-hit game.
Yeah, you know, he's got a nice straight path to the ball. His swing path is really good. He's got a one-handed takeoff. It doesn't matter. 2 hands on the bat or 1, getting the job done, finding holes. That's what's important for the Royals and this young man who's hitting over 350.
Those were his first 2 major league RBIs. Kia puts us in the driver's seat. Whit Merrifield has started 6 games since coming up to the Royals. He has hit safely in each of those 6 games, starting at second base, third base, and left field. And that's where he will be today against Carlos Rodon and the Chicago White Sox. First pitch is coming up. Brett Eibner, Whit Merrifield. Now how about the older guy? Oh, wait a minute. Eric Hosmer is younger than Whit Merrifield and Brett Eibner. He is our most trusted player. Brought to you by Honda. He did whatever the Royals needed him to do with every at-bat last night.
Yeah, and you know, that home run got him going. Now, but this hit here, that was luscious. That little slice out to left field just over Rollins' head at shortstop was timely. Slider off the plate, big hit.
Luscious.
Yeah, it was. Sweet.
Royals go for the series today. Yordano Ventura against Carlos Rodon. The first pitch is next. Royals baseball is brought to you by the Missouri Lottery. Every ticket you play gives back to schools across Missouri, so play it forward with the Missouri Lottery. By Menards, save big money at Menards on all your home improvement needs. And by your Midwest Ford dealers. Visit your MidwestFordDealers.com. Yordano Ventura takes the mound today. It'll be his second consecutive start against the Chicago White Sox. He lost on Sunday at Chicago, but had a quality start, allowing 3 earned runs in 6 innings. And the lineup that he will face today will include Adam Eaton leading off in right field, and Alex Avila batting 7th and catching 2 regulars who were out of the lineup last night, left-hand hitters, with Danny Duffy on the mound. And Ventura's first pitch is a strike, according to home plate umpire Will Little.
That's right. Fastball, curveball, changeup. His 3 pitches, they're all extremely effective, especially those secondary pitches. Have been working well for him. Sets it all up with that fastball averaging about 94.8. We showed you the walks. That's one thing he'd like to work on. 33 walks and 48 2/3 this year, but Yordano's steadily finding that zone.
3 pitches and 1 down as Eaton grounds out to Infante. And a look at the Royals defensively, presented by Ford. Whit Merrifield is in left today with Kane and Orlando in the outfield. Cuthbert, Escobar, Infante, and Hosmer around the horn. And Salvador Perez, who leads catchers in several categories. We'll talk defensively, and that is throwing out 12 potential base stealers. He's also leading major league catchers in several offensive categories. Austin Jackson led off last night's game and was part of the White Sox 5-run 6th inning, which came out of nowhere after Danny Duffy began by retiring the first 16 Sox hitters. Changeup, and that's a strike. 5 pitches, 5 strikes for Ventura.
I love Duffy's comments. He said that was my best and worst start all in one. But I liked how he carried himself after that. And when they took him out, it's a good job. Ooh, watch out, Salvi. Took him out, you know, kept his head up, kind of acknowledged the home plate umpire. Then he wore it, and then Hosmer picked him up with that nice little booty knockout to left field. Picked him up. Lorenzo Cain wasn't able to come through then in a situation before that, but he got it done. It's all that matters. This game's all about picking up your opponent, or excuse me, your teammate.
One and two on Austin Jackson. Jackson finished last night's game 2 for 4 as a leadoff hitter with a run scored. Still 1 and 2. 97 with that Yordano Ventura fastball, which we talked about at the top of the show. More two-seam fastballs designed for movement, not velocity, in his first 7 starts. More four-seam fastballs designed for velocity, and getting him back up into that 95, 96, 97 range.
Yeah, but you know what's also impressive though, Ryan, is he learns the importance of pitching to defense, and when you do that in certain situations, hitters counts. You know, you're not trying to blow it by the guy, you're trying to finesse him, and he ends up using his defense for outs. Saves the pitch count. And he's been able to induce 5 ground ball double plays.
And the count goes from 0-2 to 3-2. Now Ventura on Sunday in that start against the White Sox had some difficulty putting hitters away when he was ahead in the count. White Sox got some big hits down in the count. And now Jackson, after being down 0-2, fills out the count, but lines out to Orlando in right field. So a quality start, 3 earned runs in 6 innings pitched, 4 walks. But the big hit for the White Sox in that game, Melky Cabrera came up with a 2-run single, and that was on an 0-2 pitch. Todd Frazier hit a home run on a 1-2 pitch, and Brett Lawrie had a leadoff double in that game on an 0-2 pitch. 99 with that fastball to Todd Frazier.
Plenty of giddy up on that pitch, but that curveball and changeup, it equalizes everything.
A called strike, and the count is 1-1. Frazier homered in the game last night, his 15th of the year, tying him with Mark Trumbo, the Orioles, for the league lead.
At that velocity, doesn't give the hitter but a split second to see that ball. I'm telling you, it's on you in a heartbeat.
Look out.
And he'll do that on occasions. And that's not a bad pitch. It's a good pitch to back the guy off the plate. Maybe a little bit high for the hitter's comfort, but it works in this game. A little bit too high. That's definition of some chin music. Soft away, hard in, soft away.
Anywhere from 83 to 99 so far. And Frazier hits it out to left center field. Cain calls off Merrifield, and Ventura gets the White Sox in order in the top of the first. Officially back on track. We will see today. We can tell you that the Royals have averaged over 7 runs per game in their last 4 games, 3 against Minnesota, and then last night against Chicago. Whit Merrifield appears to be Ned Yost's choice to bat second with Mike Moustakas out. And Merrifield was productive last night with 2 hits and 2 RBIs. And the Royals, for the second time in a week, will see left-hander Carlos Rodon.
Carlos Rodon's a good-looking young pitcher. He's got good velocity on his fastball, but not overpowering. He'll average 92. Slider change. Slider being his most effective pitch when he needs it. Runners in scoring position. And you can see that slider first pitch. That's largely because opponents on Rodon's first pitch have been hit over 500 at average. So they're jumping on his first pitches.
It appears to be a pitcher-friendly strike zone. Yordano Ventura got a few borderline pitches going his way, and now Rodon the same, as Escobar was shaking his head at that call. And now down in the count, 1 ball and 2 strikes. Home plate umpire is Will Little, which so far does not describe his strike zone. Ted Barrett is the crew chief. He's at first base. Ryan Blackney is at second, and Angel Hernandez is at third. And Rodon is really trying to go with his hard stuff inside on Alcides Escobar.
It's going to be important for him to pitch to righties inside. It opens up the outer half for his changeup, and sliders down back leg.
Jammed him. Frazier plays a 2-hopper, 1 down. White Sox are better this year, and part of that is improvement on defense. And you can begin with Adam Eaton. We like to use defensive run save. That not only applies to teams, but it applies to individuals. And Adam Eaton has the best defensive run saved of any individual position player in the major leagues, plus 14. Last year he was minus 14.
Well, you know, he has quick feet. He gets good breaks on balls on contact. He's got a nice throwing arm, but what makes it even better is his quick release.
Oh, 0-2 on Whit Merrifield. Played at second base last night. 2 hits, and he drove in 2 in the Royals' biggest inning. A 4-run 7th. Both he and Hosmer drove in 2 in that inning. And for Merrifield, those were his first 2 big league RBIs. Down and away at 96, 1-2.
Either it's a hot gun here at the ballpark today, or these guys are fired up to play. What a gorgeous afternoon. I mean, beautiful. Slight breeze blowing out to right.
There's the slider. That's his best pitch. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
They can do what he just did. Merrifield lay off of that. It could be in some good fortune today against Rodon.
So 73, humid, and those flags tell you that the wind is blowing out towards center field. So really no crosswind. Anything hit in the air to left center field, and right center field hit high enough is going to get some help from the humidity and the wind. Adam Eaton waits for it in right field and makes a play. So 2 down to Lorenzo Cain, who was 0 for 4 last night. He is the subject of our Kubota Power Stats. Lorenzo Cain and Eric Hosmer are tied for 3rd in the American League with go-ahead runs driven in. Hosmer added 1 last night. And Lorenzo Cain, in addition to those 11 go-ahead RBIs, has 7 game-winning RBIs this year. Fastball at 96 for strike 1.
Locane was walking up to the plate, and just about before he got into the circle, the dirt, he had the rosin bag in his hand, and he just no-looked it. He just flipped it behind him and threw it 20 feet to Haas. Haas caught it on the line and put a little bit on his bat. A no-look pass with a rosin bag. Beautiful. Well done.
1 ball, 1 strike. First inning has been a challenge this year for Carlos Rodon, as it can be for any young pitcher. 2 balls and 1 strike.
Or old pitcher for that matter.
That's true. He has allowed 8 runs in 9 starts in the first inning. First inning ERA is 8.64. And then he settles down after the first inning. Cain was behind the fastball. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Carlos Rodon, first-round pick of the White Sox in 2014 out of North Carolina State. He was the 3rd overall pick that year. Three and two.
Cuban descent. Both parents from Cuba. Wasn't raised in Miami. He went on up to North Carolina. He was sharing that with me about, you know, you think Cubans, you think Miami, but he's proud of his upbringing there.
Cut off by Saladino. Saladino made some outstanding plays last weekend when the Royals were in Chicago. No chance on that one, but it was a heck of an effort.
Yeah, hit it in the right spot. You got good wheels. You can make that. You didn't even have, I believe Kendrys Morales could have beat that one out.
Wait a minute. Did you just say what I think you just said?
Well, I'm just
that
trying
was
to
the
say,
guy that you went on and on about all last year about he's faster than he looks.
So that was before the season, before he even got in the Royals uniform when we acquired him. I remember talking to you, and I was all excited about Morales and what he's going to do for the team, and switch hitter. He's going to help Haas, and man, you know what? He don't run too bad either for having 6 screws in his ankle.
So that's the criteria right there. For people who have 6 screws in their ankle, he runs pretty well.
That's right.
2-0 to Eric Hosmer.
That infield hit was the Royals' 41st. That's 4th in the American League.
Two and one. Hosmer got a big hit last night against the lefty Zach Duke. Hosmer had a really good year last year against left-hand pitchers. He had almost 280, but off to a slow start so far this year, and now facing a lefty in Carlos Rodon with his slider and his velocity can give left-hand batters a bad time. Two and two.
I don't remember Rodon in his start in their place against the Royals throwing this hard this early.
Maybe a little more conviction in the first inning to get past his first inning issues.
And I've seen more sliders to first pitch to guys. The league is hitting 500 on his first pitches.
Toward the left field corner, but foul.
And that's what we talk about in this game of baseball, of adjusting and making adjustments as you move along. You have to continue to adjust. If you don't, then you get it handed to you. And what that is typically is a humble pie. It awaits all in this game. Some get one piece of the pie and others eat the whole pie. But it's there. How do you ingest it?
Cain's running, and that pitch is in for a strike. So the inning is over. Hosmer questions the strike zone. Again, it appears to be a pitcher-friendly strike zone. Liberty Memorial, as Memorial Day weekend is upon us. To hit, humidity, and the wind is blowing out. Melky Cabrera didn't need any wind last night when he hit a grand slam. The White Sox have only scored 10 runs against the Royals in 4 games. Melky Cabrera has driven in 6 of those 10 runs. Here's the slam last night in a 5-run 6th inning.
Melky has the ability to recognize the mistake, and he doesn't miss them. He got that one last night. He got Ventura back at their place on an 0-2 mistake. He was ready for it. And that's the key, really, to successful hitting. It's not to hit the pitcher's pitch, but hit the one he doesn't want to throw. It's the whole idea. Recognize it.
1-1 against Yordano Ventura. Ventura got the White Sox in order in the top of the 1st inning, and now it's Cabrera, Abreu, and Laurie. Curveball at 80 miles an hour. Shallow left center field, and Whit Merrifield brings it down for the out. Bright day, so Merrifield has the sunglasses on. The sun in the first 2 innings here has just been ducking in and out of the clouds, scattered clouds. So one moment the game is being played in the shadows, and the very next moment the bright sunlight.
It affects mainly the guys on the left side of the infield more than the guys on the right.
Infante was guarding the middle, so that's an easy play to get Jose Abreu. And that proves your point right there. There's Infante on the right side, and he's got his sunglasses on the back of his cap.
That's right. Doesn't need it much there, but I'll tell you, even if you have them on, it sure does help cut the glare down and keep you from squinting, which I've said before, squinting all day long takes energy away from you.
And now Brett Laurie. Fastball rides inside, 1 ball and no strikes. Laurie led off the 9th inning last night with a single against Wade Davis. So the next 3 hitters in that inning represented the tying run, but Davis retired 3 straight with a couple of strikeouts to end the game. 96 in for a strike, 1-1.
That pitch he hit off of Davis was a perfectly located fastball. He just used his hands and trusted him and hit a dart up the middle. Good location on the curve. Doesn't want that in the middle. So he was hoping for a swing and miss.
Just over Infante. Brett Lawrie is on with 2 outs. Boy, Brett Lawrie, that is a busy setup for him. He's got an elbow pad, he's got goggles, he's got a mouth guard that looks like a couple of fangs.
Yep.
Like a vampire with the tattoos.
And he went with his
the eye black coming down his face.
Went with his white high top shoes today. Interesting look.
Looks like he's about to take his dirt bike out jumping and doing some backflips.
Yeah, he could do a little bit of off-road.
Alex Avila did not play last night. Deano Navarro was the White Sox catcher and was 1 for 4. Avila off to a 182 start at the plate. Yikes. The pitcher's got to be very careful stopping abruptly like that in the middle of a pitching motion.
Dangerous. Yeah, I don't know why umpires give him time when the guy's starting his windup. You don't have to give him time. If they call for time and then you tell them after the pitch, hey, look, you got to let me know sooner.
Change up is high, 1-1 to Avila. Out of play, 1 ball, 2 strikes. Avila is hitless in his last 13 at bats, and we showed you the 182 batting average, but his on base percentage is .324, and that's because he walks a lot, so he's still getting on base. In fact, he has more walks than hits.
Well, it can be frustrating at times when you got guys that are looking for a walk instead of driving in a run. Now look, he got a base hit there. Fought it off. He's swinging.
And his first ever base hit against Yordano Ventura. So with 2 outs, the White Sox get back-to-back hits.
Inside fastball, fought it off. Stayed inside of it. Good swing.
So the White Sox are trying to put the pressure on Ventura with a couple of 2-out hits. But Ventura at times is at his best with runners in scoring position. Our Toyota League leaders. The league is hitting just 192 when they have a base runner be on first base against him. That's up the right field line and down for a base hit. So the White Sox tear a page out of the Royals book. Avisail Garcia just trying to put the ball in play with a runner in scoring position. He drives in Brett Lawrie, so the White Sox take a 1-0 lead with 3 consecutive 2-out singles.
Fastball in the middle. Got to credit the hitters. They're not trying to do too much. They're just putting it in play. Big yard here. Spacious outfield. Trying to dump it over the infielders' heads.
Saladino takes a shot at right field and hits it off the side wall. Jimmy Rollins was at shortstop last night for the White Sox. Saladino did not play. First and third, 2 down. 0-2. Saladino, the closest thing to the Royals version of Whit Merrifield. Probably won't see him much in the outfield, but he can play all 4 infield positions. And has been playing a lot of shortstop this year for the White Sox, as he did to finish last year. Breaking ball stayed up. And on an 0-2 pitch, Tyler Saladino hits a 3-run home run. So that's what we were talking about last inning. All the trouble that Ventura got into with the White Sox when he was ahead in the count. And that's just the 2nd home run of the season for Saladino.
And the first home run by an opponent off of that curve. It's a hanger. It started up right about the letters and ended up belt high. Good easy pass on the ball. Catch it just right with that kind of overhand spin on the curve, and you hit it underneath of the ball. It just continues to spin and gets good carry.
All of this with 2 outs. Single, 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 3-run home run.
Well, if there's one thing that the White Sox learned from last night's game is they can't sit back and go, oh, yeah, there you go. Royals got plenty of time in this one to come back like they did last night. Didn't have as much time last night.
Out to Infante, and Eaton grounds out to the Royals' second baseman for the 2nd time in 2 innings. 4 runs, 4 hits, 2 with the hitters down in the count. Salvador Perez extended his hitting streak last night, which is now 12 games. He has hit safely in 16 of his last 17 games. Academy Sports and Outdoors leaderboard. He has hit .417 during that 12-game hitting streak, getting his overall batting average up to .282. His career high is 17 in a row. Carlos Rodon has a 4-0 lead. He is that.
Yep.
Mr. Personality. Inside, 2 balls and no strikes.
Salvi's in a good position right now, and he's in a good place. He's very calm. He's not jumpy. Whenever you have a hitting streak going, you're seeing that ball and you're locked on it and taking pitches. He's going after his buddy Escobar for the league, or for the total in walks. Wants to beat him in that category. Escobar has 8 walks, so does Salvi.
Leadoff walk. Last thing in the world Rodon wanted to do after his team scored 4 runs. Last thing Robin Ventura wanted to see after his offense scored 4 runs. A reminder, as you enjoy a cold one, to look forward to Miller Time later in today's game, brought to you by Miller Lite. Paulo Orlando, like Salvador Perez, has an impressive hitting streak. After going 1 for 4 with a run scored last night, Paulo has a career best 10-game hitting streak, and he's hitting .500 during his streak. Crack bat, base hit. 2 on, nobody out. So make it 11 straight for Paulo Orlando.
How about that, fighting off that inside heater? That ball, it had a parachute on it. And that bat died a hero. He'll take it any day. Ball was on the labels right there. Just a little lob shot, perfectly placed. It's early, but all these young players, they know how to bunt. Cuthbert, I don't know. We saw Eibner last night as the designated hitter drop a sac bunt down.
Which we learned after the game was his own decision.
Okay.
And Ned Yost had a great line that Eibner missed the sign from Mike Jerschele. The Royals didn't expect him to bunt. And then Eibner apologized to Ned Yost for missing the signs. And Ned said, "Young man, don't worry about it. Nobody knows the signs on this team." Sarcastically, of course.
There you go.
Found the right way to put a young player at ease who was worried about missing a sign in his big league debut.
That's right. Cuthbert 2 for 3 off Rodon.
1 ball, 2 strikes. Chesler had 2 hits last night. Chesler, Cuthbert, Brett Eibner, and Whit Merrifield, 3 players who started the season in AAA, were a combined 5 for 11 last night. They scored twice and they combined to drive in 2. Still 1 ball, 2 strikes.
Runners in scoring position against Rodon this year, 356. That's 5th highest in the American League. Now, Chesler is doing okay at 308, getting those runs home, but it's certainly not a statistic that Rodon wants to have. You want to be able to execute your best pitches with runners out there, and so far this year they've gotten him.
That was the pitch Rodon wanted Cuthbert to chase, down and out of the strike zone. 2-2.
Talking with Donnie Cooper, their longtime pitching coach, who's standing on the top deck or top step in their dugout, about Rodon, saying he gets a little rattled still. He's still you know, a young pitcher. He gets rattled when guys get in scoring position. Times when you're rattled, you leave pitches up in the zone that are hittable.
3-2. Brett Eibner waits on deck. Into the right field corner. Eaton makes the play. Salvador Perez will advance and go to third. So Cuthbert had a long at bat. Got it deep into the corner. Maybe a little bit of help from the wind. And now first and third with 1 out. And now Brett Eibner 1 for 3 with that first big league hit. It was a double in the Royals' 4-run 7th inning. In fact, his double started the rally, and he scored the first of 4 runs.
Parents in the stands, a lot of pressure on him, he thinks. Not really, though, but he came through. Hit a ball, didn't even make it to the wall, showing off some speed.
Mom is no more relaxed today than she was last night. Outside to Eibner. Royals' second-round pick in 2010 out of the University of Arkansas. That as an outfielder. In high school, he was drafted in the 4th round by the Astros as a pitcher. Changeup. Well, maybe he just took a little something off the fastball. 2-0 on Eibner. And he was really hit by the injury bug in the Royals minor league system.
Got him a good fastball count here.
Toward the right field corner, but slicing and foul. Brett Eibner broke his hand at the end of his college season and played through it. And then when the Royals signed him, they immediately put him in a cast to let the hand heal. But he's had a torn thumb. He's had shoulder problems. He's had a torn abdominal muscle. All those injuries slowing down his journey to the big leagues. There's mom and dad, Carol and Dan. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
There's always a certain amount of nervous energy for every player, no matter how much time you got in. But for him, the second day is a little bit easier for him, although he's still DHing, which is a tough spot. Don't get to play the defense.
Orlando runs, and it's popped up, so Paulo has to hustle back to first base as Abreu makes a play in foul territory. 2 down. So the Royals had 2 on, nobody out, and now first and third, 2 down. And the Royals need a hit with 2 outs from Omar Infante. Omar did not play last night. He drove in 5 runs during the road trip, and that was against the White Sox and the Twins. Slider is down and in, ball 1. Salvador Perez opened the inning with a walk. Paulo Orlando looped a single into right. Cuthbert flied out to deep right. That got Salvador Perez to third, and then Eibner fouled out to first. .94 and outside. 2 balls and no strikes. Well, the White Sox got a 3-run home run from their number 9 hitter in the top half of this inning.
Oh, you putting a call on Infante?
Just a fact. 3-0. It was Tyler Saladino's second home run of the year. Omar Infante is still looking for his first home run of the year. Instead, a walk to load him up for Escobar. And there's Don Cooper, White Sox pitching coach. This is a big inning. Not that it's going to decide the game, but the White Sox just got 4 for Carlos Rodon. So at the moment, the White Sox have the momentum, if you believe in that in baseball. If he can get out of this, that'll give him a lift. If the Royals do something right here, well, then right away the White Sox, like they were last night, they will be on the defense.
Yep, I think Donnie Cooper, he's taken the most of his 30 seconds out there, and I believe he had similar words to what you just said. Look, this is big time here. Let's go right after Escobar, have him hit the ball somewhere. You know he's going to put the ball in play, most likely. Escobar with 8 walks, he's not up there to walk. Royals, bases loaded this year, 4 for 18, getting better in that mark.
267 with runners in scoring position. That's what the Royals are hitting as a team. 267, which, by the way, is suddenly 5th in the American League. That's how good they've been in the last 3 weeks, going from the bottom of the American League to the top 5. Bases loaded, 2 down. The Royals are trying to answer the White Sox. They scored all 4 of their runs in the top half of this inning. Escobar ground ball to Frazier, and Rodon gets out of it. So the Royals are not able to turn a single and 2 walks into any offense. For the birds. Now, for the people sitting below, that's an entirely different topic.
But even though these birds have been there from the very first inning on, they haven't flown. They don't realize that their life is in jeopardy. Those foul balls come flying up over there quickly. If I'm Mr. Dove, I'm taking Mrs. Dove and watching the game from another angle. I mean, obviously, all they're missing is some popcorn and a cold drink.
Curveball makes it 0-2 on Austin Jackson. He lined out to Orlando in right field in the first inning.
Too bad the Royals couldn't scratch a run that inning. They had him lined up. Escobar, aggressive on the first pitch, but it was not a strike.
Fouled away, still 1-2 on Jackson. The White Sox, with 2 outs and nobody on, got a single from Brett Lawrie, a single from Alex Avila on a 1-2 pitch, a single from Avisail Garcia to score a run, and then Tyler Saladino on an 0-2 pitch hit a 3-run home run. And with the count 1-2, Austin Jackson gets a base hit, although that wasn't a bad pitch. That was down and in. So you have to credit Jackson there. And he's on to begin the third. It is Wichita State Day at Kauffman Stadium this afternoon. And with that, let's go to Joel.
And a couple of Wichita State Shocker basketball players and a big part of the program. And a couple of local guys that love the Royals too. Connor Frankamp, Landry Shamet. First off, got to ask you guys about being here. I know we talked about it on the pregame show. And seeing your childhood team, your baseball team, the world champions. How much fun?
It's really fun. It's a great day to be out here. Tons of fans, also a great Wichita State Day, and I'm really enjoying it so far.
And Connor is a big Eric Hosmer fan, so perfectly appropriate that he caught that ball there. All right, guys, what's tougher, you know, making, say, a three-pointer, a free throw, or throwing a strike when you're throwing out the first pitch, Landry?
I mean, we were just having fun. It was just playing catch. It was kind of nerve-wracking a little bit, but, you know, it was just smile about it, go do it. I think that might have been a little tougher because we don't do that as often, so I don't know. It was good, though.
Connor, I mean, you could shoot threes in your sleep. How about throwing strikes?
Throwing a strike's a little bit tougher than shooting a three, I think, but it was all right.
Well, we'll take a look right now at your baseball abilities, and I want to ask you guys, because both of you have been coming here, you from Wichita, Connor, and Landry, Park Hill native and graduate. So what was it like to be watching this team finally win a world championship?
It was awesome. Growing up, being a pretty big fan of the Royals, and then seeing them finally break through and get a World Series was amazing. And they just seem to keep improving every year, and it's really fun to watch.
And Landry was telling us on the pregame that he was watching in the dorm, so you were cheering on, but that you almost had a big moment as a second grader here at Kauffman Stadium. What happened?
Sitting right over there. It was rainy. Derek Jeter.
How about that? Not the way you draw it up, but it worked out. Whit Merrifield makes up for the mistake and throws out the runner at second base. So that went better than yours did, but you almost tell us about it.
Yeah, well, it was a second grader. Derek Jeter is my favorite. Like, he was my favorite baseball player of all time. Fouled one off, landed like 2 seats away from me, so unfortunately didn't come away with that foul ball, but it was still pretty cool.
All right, guys, real quick basketball. Fred VanVleet is gone. Ron Baker is gone. The tradition and the legacy is there. How do you continue to carry that on?
We have some great young guys who are going to come in. We feel like people could step up and really improve their roles this season. We're very excited for it.
Yeah, same, just what he said, you know, just keep working every day. It's not going to be an overnight process, but, you know, we got the guys in place that can help out and fill that void as a collective group.
Guys, great to have you here today at Wichita State Day, and good luck in the upcoming season.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, guys, let's go back up to you. A couple of big Royals fans now playing for the Shockers.
All right, Joel, thank you. And in addition to their basketball success for a long time, Wichita State has been a baseball power. Most of that under the now retired Gene Stevenson. I got a chance to play against a few Gene Stevenson teams in college.
What was he like?
Quiet leader, but boy, his teams are a lot like the Royals. The Wichita State teams, I remember, they could all run. Couldn't strike anybody out. Good pitching, good defense. Hosmer catches 2 foul outs as Ventura bounces back after the 4-run second inning and has a scoreless third. Royals baseball is brought to you by Chevy. Visit your local Kansas City area Chevy dealer for great prices on the all-new 2016 Malibu. By Panera Bread, food as it should be, with 24 Kansas City Metro locations. And by Academy Sports and Outdoors, right stuff, low price, every day. Liberty Memorial and the National World War I Memorial on a beautiful Saturday afternoon in Kansas City. 4-0 White Sox. Whit Merrifield leads off the bottom of the third. Carlos Rodon got him on a fly ball to right field in the first inning.
It's an interesting way to record your first outfield assist in the big leagues. A lot of firsts for Merrifield here in the last 2 weeks. And Avila really didn't need that love tap from Merrifield on the backswing, but he got one anyway. That's what happens sometimes. That's why you wear that full helmet. Clonk. Ouch.
Remember all those years when the catchers in the old black and white films would just have a mask over their cap?
Yeah. Oh, man. And, you know, Avila, like a lot of catchers, have had issues with concussion on foul tips and what we just saw.
You know, what's interesting is Avila and Salvador Perez were basically in the same boat, having issues with concussions, so they changed their equipment. Look out. Look at that fella back there having a nice cold drink, and Rodon threw it right at him, and the guy just put his hands out at his sides like, what was that for? Watch the guy throw it right at him, and then, hey, come on, man.
He missed.
Abreu runs out of room. But anyway, just to finish the thought, it's interesting how Avila and Salvador Perez went in opposite directions. Remember, Salvi had the lighter mask, and the Royals decided that it'd be better for him to go to the more heavy, sturdier iron mask. Well, that's what Avila used to use. But his remedy to battle the concussions was to go to the hockey style mask, which is lighter.
And they say, you know, with all that plastic around you, that when you get hit with that, it's like a big vibration and noise inside. You know, it's like you're in a room, hollow room, and it vibrates more, louder sound. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. It's a.
When you figure it out, would you share it with us?
Sorry.
Something about a hollow room and the vibration.
When you get hit there, it makes a louder noise because there's
like literally getting your bell rung.
Yeah, you're surrounded with all the plastic in the helmet. There we go.
Merrifield into the right field corner. Leadoff double.
Right-handed batters today off of Rodon shooting that ball down that right field corner a lot. Eaton's having to do a lot of running towards that line. Merrifield went with the pitch on the outer half. Good extension. Hey, and he left both hands on the bat that time on the fall through. He normally takes one of his hands off, but he stuck that well. Yeah. Now let's get him over and in.
Popped up, got him to chase an off-speed pitch down. Kane is 1 for 2. On Friday, some of the world's biggest soccer stars converge on the United States for the 100th anniversary of the Copa America. It all starts as USA takes on Colombia Friday at 7 p.m. on FS1, or you can watch the entire tournament on Fox Sports Go. So no advance for Merrifield on the fly out to right. Eric Hosmer with Merrifield at second base and 1 out. And Merrifield takes off for third. He is in there. Angel Hernandez wanted to make sure that he didn't overslide third base. So that's Merrifield's way of picking up Lorenzo Cain.
And a nice other first steal in his big league career. He picked a timely spot for it too. Kane couldn't get him over. He says, all right, I'll take care of it and pick up my partner who couldn't move me. I'll move myself. Direct path. She's lined up right between the bags. Get there quicker when you do that instead of leading off in back of the base.
Slider down and away. 1 ball, 1 strike. He's got the Hosmer haircut.
Watch out now. I hope that's not a wood bat.
As a right-hand hitting Eric Hosmer.
Yeah, watch out for the backswing, Mom.
1-2. Rodon used that slider to strike out Hosmer looking in the first inning.
That's the one for a strike. He starts it at the hitter. It breaks over. The one that he wants you to chase starts middle of the plate and then ends up off the dish.
Ground ball, base hit. Hosmer shortens up, down in the count, and drives in Merrifield to get the Royals on the board. So little Haas with the little bat in his hand, big Haas with the big bat in his hand, and the Royals break through against Rodon.
Had an opportunity last inning to get on the board and couldn't do it with a runner at third and less than 2, and here it comes again, and the opposite field hit. Standing tall, took this first swing to try to hit it out of the park, but you know what, then he shortened up, got the job done.
At the knees, a strike to Salvador Perez.
Looked easy. So the kids, he's in his own dream world. You like that. Haas is going.
He is safe.
Got a track meet breaking out here at the K all of a sudden.
And Alex Avila has only thrown out 1 of 11 runners this year. So 2 stolen bases in the inning for the Royals.
Haas likes to get a little walking lead. He likes to walk into it. Short lead. It appears to the pitcher, especially the lefty Rodon, looking right at him, that he's not going to go anywhere. So he walks into it, and sometimes that momentum on your start gets you that bag.
Perez is down 0-2. He walked his first time. Able to check his swing. No swing. Ted Barrett. The Reverend Theodore Barrett says no swing.
Solid individual. Good umpire. Firm, fair. Nice guy. But I've seen him heated before. It's not pretty because he was a boxer as well.
Old foul.
It's the only umpiring crew I've ever seen that has a little prayer before they break up their huddle at the home plate at the lineups. And you know what? They included Salvi. Today they got Salvi in there. They said, hey, Salvi, you know, you're here. Might as well just get on in. Look at this. How about that? And watch the umpire. Angel put his arm on him. I love that. Huh? Let it go, Ted. Let it give thanks.
Two balls, 2 strikes. The heated Ted Barrett, I remember it was the first year of replay. He was a home plate umpire here. And Ron Gardenhire, after the call went against the Twins, took 1 step out of the Twins dugout, and Ted Barrett just ran him. He got tired of the umpires on the field getting blamed for calls made in New York. A wild pitch gets Hosmer to third base. So now Salvador Perez can drive him home with a well-placed out.
You know, this is an interesting position right here now for Rodon. He knows he's got a guy who he walked earlier. Salvi rarely walks. And first base is open. Do you throw him a strike and try to get to him, or do you let him swing out of the zone? I'm not going to give him anything too good right here. Yeah.
And he didn't.
Right. Salvi wanted to drive it. You know, he wants to swing. Rarely has he had a 2-walk game.
Strikeout number 2 for Rodon. And out comes pitching coach Don Cooper. So they're going to chat about Paulo Orlando, who broke his bat and single to right in the second inning.
And he is hitting .500 with runners in scoring position. Younger pitchers, you're going to see more visits by pitching coaches. Seen the same thing with Ventura over the last couple of seasons. Cooper is breaking Rodon in.
Paulo Orlando extended his hitting streak to 11 games. How about the Red Sox? Jackie Bradley Jr. just had his 29-game hitting streak snapped. And his teammate Xander Bogaerts has hit in 21 straight. And then it's Salvador Perez and Paulo Orlando for the longest current streaks in the American League. Down and in, ball 1. Slider, and it's called a strike in the upper portion of the strike zone.
So, all right, you know, he wants to use the middle of the field. That's where he's been getting most of his hits. Matter of fact, there's the proof. See a right-handed hitter with more hits to the opposite field, you're going to see a guy with a big average. And pitchers are going to try to bust him inside, try to keep him from using that part of the field.
Look at that, 10 out of 20 with a runner on base beyond first.
Some kind of clutch.
Right field and right at Eaton. So down in the count, right approach. The Royals get 1 run on the Hosmer base hit. It all started with a Whit Merrifield double, a steal of third, and then Hosmer with 2 strikes got him home.
He's backing away.
Last night, Chicago scored all of its runs in 1 inning. The Royals hope that holds true again today and Try and chip away at that lead. Brett Lawrie pops it up. Perez and Hosmer to the Royals dugout, and Salvador Perez takes care of Brett Lawrie. It was Lawrie with 2 outs in the second inning who singled and started that 4-run inning.
Some good focus on that ball, looking up into the sun. Hosmer didn't call it, didn't say a word, because he has priority over the catcher. And when you don't hear anything, it's yours all the way. Salvi, any chance he gets to smile, he does. How about that? Plays with joy. Gotta love that. Haas too. These guys play happy. They're loose. They're enjoying their gig, and they should. You're a big leaguer. Millions of people would love to be where they are right there, out on that field. It's fun.
Strike 2, Alex Avila.
Especially with all these people watching. Eibner and these minor leaguers. I know ballparks are nice and they're newer than they were back in the day, but you know, there's 200, 300 people there sometimes compared to packed houses, especially here at the K.
Avila to a wide open right center field. So Avila is 2 for 2. He was hitting 182 when the game started.
Yep, that was a short swing, didn't do too much. Got a pitch he could handle. Take 2 hits to score him, unless one of them is well placed.
And now Avisail Garcia. It's odd to see one team, let alone 2, have their DH batting 8th. That's where Garcia and Brett Eibner are hitting. You can understand with Eibner, he was just called up yesterday, but we discussed Avisail Garcia yesterday and the high hopes the White Sox had for him to play right field and bat in the middle of the order when they traded for him. Breaking ball hangs high, 1 ball and 1 strike. He has chipped in this series. He singled and scored in the White Sox 5-run 6th last night, and he singled, scored, and drove in a run in the White Sox 4-run 2nd today. 2 balls and 1 strike.
Giordano's job, do whatever you can, just hold him down, execute your pitches, use the defense. 3 of them, nice ones.
Oh, deep left field. The White Sox get the run back and then some.
No.
And the White Sox have scored 6 runs against Yordano Ventura in 3 1/3 innings.
Damage is coming. 6, 7, 8, 9 in their order. Man, straight as a string changeup that was up there around the belt. That's not where you want to leave that one.
He's like a breaking ball pitcher today.
Yeah, I think a couple of the balls that they've hit off of his fastballs kind of made him a little nervous about it. But you got to stay with it. Stay convicted with your pitches.
Saladino hit a 3-run home run in the White Sox 4-run 2nd. Did somebody go in the water to get that home run ball from Garcia?
Not advisable.
Stiff penalties if you go in the water.
And a lot of hazard inside the water from what I hear. And we're looking at him out there, all the lights that are in there, very dangerous.
As we've learned over the years, The authorities will spare no expense when it comes to prosecuting. Persons entering the fountains will be arrested and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Now, I don't know, is that like a life sentence? Or, I mean, what is the fullest extent of the law for jumping in a fountain at a major league venue? We've never really gotten an answer. Saladino hits that a mile, but foul. Yeah, that's a bit intimidating, but not to the fellow who just jumped in there to get the Garcia home run ball.
I guess not. Look, I'd be happy to take the guy a ball. Give him one if he wants one.
Breaking ball, and it was a hanging curveball to Saladino in the second inning, an 0-2 hanging breaking ball.
No, that's the last thing that fan expected to happen today on Memorial Day weekend. Going out to the Royals game, gonna watch it. Got a good seat in the outfield. Got a little excited. Didn't make a good decision. Ooh, good pitch there.
Fastball with good movement, and that is Yordano Ventura's first strikeout today.
That movement, he got some good action on that end. That almost looked like changeups type of stuff down there.
Hope you'll come out tomorrow and cheer on the Royals as the first 20,000 fans will receive this Royals World Series Champions reusable bag, courtesy of the MLB Network. There it is. And you can get your tickets now at Royals.com or call 1-800-6-ROYALS. And remember, tomorrow is also a Family Fun Day Sunday. 1-1 on Adam Eaton. Ventura's gotten him to ground out to second base twice. Curveball in for a strike. The White Sox 6 through 9 hitters have scored all 6 of the runs, and their 8 and 9 hitters have driven in all 6 runs. Eaton is down on strikes. Ventura has back-to-back strikeouts to end the top of the 4th inning, but Avisail Garcia homers, and Chicago leads 6-1 in the 4th. A servant leader for a 50-year-old organization out of Topeka called Lead a Child, which has helped 26,000 students in 29 developing countries. He travels to these countries speaking hope to the students on behalf of Americans who sponsor them to receive a Christian education. This last year, David and a friend biked 3,500 miles across America from Portland, Oregon to Portland, Maine, and raised more than $250,000. And you can learn more at leadachild.org. LEADA child.org.
Way to go, David. Big heart. That's a long ride. Ooh.
Chesler Cuthbert flied out to deep right his first time. 1 ball and 1 strike. Chesler drove Adam Eaton to the warning track in the right field corner back in the second. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Carlos Rodon typically doesn't get this kind of run support. Usually averages under 3 runs of support per start. So he's pitching with a comfort he's not normally used to. If he is comfortable, some pitchers can lose their edge when they're pitching with a big lead. Did Cuthbert get Alex Avila again?
Yeah, you know what? Ooh, man, how'd that feel? Right up on the trap muscle up there, right under the neck.
It was Whit Merrifield who got him last time, not Cuthbert.
Well, the White Sox, they've only averaged 3 runs in their last 13 games, so Rodon feels pretty blessed today.
Saladino throws out Cuthbert, and there's 1 down in the bottom of the 4th inning. Let's find Joel.
Well, Rusty Kuntz with the young guys up is very busy, which he loves. He says he's going over a lot of extra work with guys like Whit Merrifield. It's focusing on stealing and bunting and working on outfield when he's not playing second base. In the case of Brett Eibner, even though he hasn't been in the outfield yet, had him out yesterday working on balls coming in on the right field corner, outfield depth, hand signals, terminology, but also second base leads, stolen bases, and yes, working on bunting they hope to do. Clearly last night he showed he's capable of it, and as you guys very accurately pointed out, that while he's a middle of the lineup guy in the minor leagues, they will ask those players to bunt from time to time in case they need to, batting 8th. So he might have the bunting down. It's, as you mentioned, the signs that may still need work.
Thank you, Joel. 1 ball and 1 strike. Eibner was a big out for Rodon in the 2nd inning. Eibner batted with runners at 1st and 3rd and 1 out, hoping to get a fly ball to the outfield, and Rodon got him to foul out to the first baseman Abreu. He hits this one a mile in the air to left field, and Cabrera brings it down for the 2nd out.
You just missed that one.
And before Omar Infante comes to the plate, our T-Mobile greater coverage of baseball. Yu Darvish will make the start against Pittsburgh tonight. So the Rangers get a 2nd ace in their rotation, joining the lefty Cole Hamels. Texas is a 1.5 games back of Seattle in the American League West after winning the West last year.
Hamels got beat for the first time in a long time last night.
1-1 on Omar Infante. Texas is 9th in the league in ERA, so they could use Yu Darvish. Darvish last pitched in August of 2014. Infante walked first time up into center field and right at Austin Jackson. That is the first 1-2-3 inning for Carlos Rodon, and at the end of 4, Chicago leads 6-1. especially over the last 9 games to score runs. But thanks to the bottom of their order, they have scored 6 in the first 4 innings against Yordano Ventura. That was a 3-run home run from Tyler Saladino in the 2nd inning, their number 9 hitter, and now Avisail Garcia, their number 8 hitter. It's a 2-run shot in the 4th inning, and Chicago leads 6-1 as we welcome in Jeff Montgomery. And it's been a challenge at times for Yordano Ventura this year to get either the 3rd strike or the 3rd out in an inning.
Yeah, and I think if you look at what Yordano has gone through, oftentimes when you're struggling as a pitcher, you got great stuff, but sometimes figuring out the best way to use your stuff, and sometimes you have to go back to square one. You have to figure out what makes me click. What's the best thing for me? Yordano Ventura is always going to be that four-seam fastball, and sometimes I think he has such good off pitches, his curveball and his changeup. Oftentimes I think he gets away and he doesn't believe in his fastball quite as much as he should.
Yeah, in my opinion, just watching him today, he's as much of an off-speed pitcher today, breaking ball pitcher, as Jackson will reach with a single leading off the 5th inning. 2nd time he has led off an inning with a base hit, but he's been as much of an off-speed pitcher today as he has been a power pitcher with his fastball.
The games, to me, when he is at his best, it seems like he comes out, he establishes early in the game that he's going to attack down in the strike zone with that four-seam fastball. And Hutter, as you know, with that kind of fastball, it doesn't matter what kind of hitter you got up there. If you're down in the strike zone with 97, 98 miles an hour with a little bit of life on it too, hard to do much with it.
Yeah, in his last start in Chicago, he was blowing away guys in the middle with that kind of velocity. And you know, we hear the word pitching with conviction, or the phrase pitch with conviction. That's what you're talking about. Get out there and establish that pitch and stay with it. And then when they start jumping on it, that's when you go to the secondary pitches.
Right, exactly. Last night, Danny Duff was a really good example of that. He filled up the strike zone. He didn't have pinpoint control with this stuff, but he was in the strike zone. And then you see him the 2nd time, 3rd time through. That's when you want to make those slight adjustments, and I think that's just that's a feel thing. As a pitcher, you have to eventually figure out when do I need to make those adjustments.
And Salvi can help a lot. Now, he put down the curveball that Saladino hit, the number 9 batter. So Salvi and him working together, got to figure that out.
Ventura threw one under Frazier's chin back in the 1st inning and almost nailed him here. It'll go as a wild pitch, getting Jackson to 2nd base. Frazier has flied to center and fouled out to 1st today.
Well, I think if you go back to the game when Yordano Ventura gave up the home run the opposite field in Chicago against Frazier, he's going to make sure he doesn't leave anything out over the middle part of the plate or away where he can get extended.
Fouled back. All right, Yordano Ventura has had issues with walks this year. He leads the major leagues with 33 walks. He hasn't walked anybody today. Are there times when a pitcher can throw too many strikes?
We've heard the term effectively wild. At times you can be effective by coming in on guys and doing that, but I think with Yordano, he just needs to be able to fill up that strike zone consistently, and his stuff is good enough. But you still have to keep in mind anything down, and I think oftentimes pitchers get really too in tune with the inside part of the plate, the outside part of the plate, and they focus less on the bottom part of the strike zone. And I think that's sometimes you fall in that trap.
Wynn pushes it back to the track, and Merrifield makes a play on Frazier. Jackson tags and holds, and there's one down. I remember years ago when Oral Hershiser was the pitching coach for the Cleveland Indians, and he had a young CC Sabathia, and I don't know why I remember this, but you just triggered a memory. But he realized that CC Sabathia was thinking about down and away, up and in, and his advice to Sabathia was, you don't have to worry about down and away, just pick one of them. With your stuff, either think down or think away, but you don't have to think about 2 parts of the strike zone, just 1.
And the reason I like the down part of it is that plate with you got 17 to 19 inches to work with down in the strike zone, whereas on the in and out, if you make a mistake an inch or 2 either way, oftentimes you're pitching to a 2 or 3 inch part of the strike zone instead of a wider part of that strike zone. That's why I like the down part much more than the in and the out.
Curveball for a strike.
And doesn't necessarily mean that those balls down won't get hit, as they do, because lots of times hitters aren't thinking like a pitcher's thinking and a catcher's thinking. Hitters are up there reacting, and sometimes they'll just react to that low pitch and square it up, like we've seen a couple in this series with Duffy last night.
Infante, nice play to the hole, and then throws it away, and the White Sox will get a run. Ventura was so concerned with the play at home plate, and there really was no play there, that Melky Cabrera was able to sneak into second base. Now that's much easier for us to see up here in the booth, but Cabrera was maybe halfway between first and second when Ventura was looking at home plate.
He had plenty of time. He just whipped the throw, pulled it, he pulled the throw. Nowhere close.
So it's 7-1, and now Abreu. Off of Cuthbert's glove, and Escobar's throw is late. Cuthbert trying to play a short hop, and it did not stick in the webbing. And it's an error on Cuthbert.
It's a little bit shocking to see as a guy as good a fielder as Cuthbert misjudged this, but it just got underneath his glove. It's going to happen, but on back-to-back plays, that hurts, especially the run Infante threw him.
Outside to Brett Lawrie. Lawrie with 2 outs and nobody on in the second inning singled. Seemed harmless at the time, but that was the start of a 4-run second inning. And then he fouled out to Perez in the 4th inning.
Guys, really hard to do in this situation when things are going south the way they are in this inning and in this game for Yordan Ventura. But the most important thing he can do is find a way to get things back on track, establish a little bit of positives going into his next start, because at this stage in the game he's got to try to find a way to come away with something good.
Good point. You got to be able to let it go quickly and jump right back in that zone. He has induced 4 ground ball double plays. He'd like to get one here. See if I could turn it for him.
Into the left field corner, foul ball. Hope you'll spend your Memorial Day holiday with us as we honor the military with the Royals Armed Forces Night presented by Budweiser. That's Monday with Tampa Bay in town. We hope you'll get here early for a special pregame ceremony as we honor those men and women who died in service of this country and those still active service. You can get your tickets right now at Royals.com or at 1-800-6-ROYALS. Strike 3 with a breaking ball. Lawrie thought it was up and in. It has been a big strike zone all day for both pitchers.
Guys, we're going to see this curveball. It's going to be a called 3rd strike, but it's really not what you would call a quality 2-strike breaking ball. He got away with it. Was up. He kind of froze Lawrie on the pitch because it was up. You're looking for that curveball to finish down lower part of the strike zone.
Up and away to Alex Avila. Chin-Ming Wong Warms up in the Royals bullpen. Ventura is at 90 pitches in 4 2/3 innings. 7, 8, and 9 hitters in particular for Chicago have combined to score 5 of the 7 runs and drive in 6 of the 7 runs. So you get all prepared for Frazier and Cabrera and Abreu. Not that you take the other hitters lightly, but if you can hold those 3 to a combined 0 for 9, and that's what they are, you figure you're in good shape. Curveball makes it 1-2.
And that's one fear you have when you're playing a team like the White Sox, a team that's been down offensively. Once they get the bottom part of that lineup going, sometimes it allows the top of the lineup to relax a little bit, and then they get it going. Then you got kind of where the Royals have gotten to now as far as their turnaround offensively.
Avila is down on strikes. So Ventura has struck out 4. All 4 have come in the last 2 innings, but the White Sox have 7 in their first 5 at bats.
North of the border for our Mazda game break. Northtown Mazda game break. Dustin Pedroia, 1 of 2 doubles on the day. That's Jose Bautista chasing it. He missed last night's game with that 1-game suspension for his role in that brawl with Rougned Odor. By the way, Bautista said that the suspension was unfounded, unfair, and I think the league owes it to the fans who pay a lot of money to come watch me play and give them the specific reason why I'm not playing today. He sat yesterday, watched Brian Shapiro's Cleveland Cavaliers knock off the Toronto Raptors. His team today is losing 8-4.
This is not a rhetorical question. It'll come across that way, but I'm just going to ask. Has there ever been a case involving Jose Bautista where he has taken any of the blame or been accountable for any negative situation he was involved in?
Ryan Goins pleads the 5th.
Next time may be the first.
After a while, you know, when a person is never wrong, then the court of public opinion will immediately rule him guilty. And then the long explanation afterward explaining why he was victimized or misunderstood or whatever. Escobar is grounded to third twice, once with the bases loaded in the 2nd inning. That was a big out for Rodon. The Royals had Rodon on the ropes in both the second and third innings and scored 1 run. So 2 ways to look at it. The Royals didn't come through, or Rodon did a good job of pitching through it.
Monty, I like how confident he looks. Now, sure, when your team drops a 4 spot in the second inning, that's going to give you a little bit more breathing room to go out and execute your pitches. But I like how he's attacking the zone, and he's mixing them up. He's mixing pitches up because the opponents were hitting 500 on those first pitches. So he's throwing more sliders first pitches to these guys. He's making some good adjustments.
Well, he's a guy that's got an outstanding slider, and he can throw 2 different sliders. He can throw the one that's going to be the put away, which is going to finish off the plate. We saw him put Salvador Perez away with that particular pitch in his earlier at bat. And then he's got the one where he uses a very quality slider to get ahead of hitters with it too in the strike zone.
Base hit left field. So Rodon gives up a leadoff single, but in the back of his mind, I'm sure he's thinking, well, I'll take that now, as opposed to with the bases loaded back in the second inning. Leadoff man on for the Royals for the 3rd time in 5 innings. All right, our Sprint trivia question for today. Who are the only 2 Royals rookies all time with 5 consecutive multi-hit games? So that's an easy question.
I like your confidence,
I mean,
Rhino.
yeah, well, you know, Royals only been around for 48 years.
I think I would start with rookies of the year. Was Lou Piniella a rookie of the year?
He was.
Bob Hamlin was rookie of the year. Wasn't an average hitter, he was a power hitter.
Carlos Beltran.
How about Billy Butler?
How about Ken Harvey? How about Mike Sweeney? How about Danny Tartable? How about
I like Warren Cromartie.
Yeah.
I think Bull was a rookie.
How about
of the
Brian
Mariners.
McRae? How about Kevin Seitzer?
Let's just throw some names
How
out.
about Willie Wilson? How about Whit Merrifield has a chance for 5 straight multi-hit games. He is 1 for 2 with a double and a run scored. We haven't seen a lot of that pitch today. When the Royals first saw Carlos Rodon, it was a spring training game 2 years ago, and we televised that game. And Carlos Rodon struck out 9 in 4 innings with that wicked slider. Now, he's had some good ones today, don't get me wrong, but he hasn't thrown a lot of them. That slider was up and not down and in like he likes to throw it to a right-hand batter. And he's able to strike out Merrifield, and that's 3 strikeouts for Rodon.
It was one of them was a rookie of the year.
Nice work, Hud.
Yeah,
Lou Piniella.
That was close. Glad you're up here today, Monty.
Lorenzo Cain has an infield single, and he's flied out to right field. Maybe this gets back to, we can tie it into the conversation we were having about Yordano Ventura, where Rodon is not throwing his slider that often, or his best slider that often. He's really used his fastball to set up the slider, get the hitter thinking fastball, and then is picking good spots to go with that pitch.
Yes, plus he's using that elevated 4-seamer, and look, he's been throwing 95. We've seen some 97s out of it. It's tough today. He's got it working.
Did he get him? Nope.
And guys, part of that is a young pitcher figuring out exactly who you are. Kind of like I was talking about with Yordano, trying to search today on, you know, which kind of pitcher am I going to be. Rodon has that tremendous slider. In fact, guys have compared his slider to lefty Steve Carlton, so you know it's a good one whenever they're comparing it to Carlton. And he's now figuring out what, you know, what's the best time to use that put away slider. You don't want to throw it too much because at some point you're going to hitters will be sitting on it, and they will spit on that slider if it's going to finish out of the strike zone.
Yeah, you might be describing the best left-handed slider in the history of the game when you're talking about Steve Carlton, or at least one of the top 3.
From a lefty, Randy Johnson and Danny Jackson. Double.
Escobar will go to third, and Mike Jirschele will hold him. Royals are down by 6. Second and third, one out. Lorenzo Cain has a 2-hit game.
Now you mentioned him, Monty's got 2 different kind of sliders. One is the get me over one for a strike, and that was it. And Lorenzo Cain caught it in the middle of the plate. He hooked it, and a nice piece of hitting there on that mistake there. But you know, the other one was that one that's down, and it's a lot harder, has a little bit more tilt on it. And Jirschele playing it safe. I mean, if he gets Escobar thrown out at home, what good's that going to do the Royals? You know, the fans here wanted to see him score, but situation really doesn't call for that, down this many runs.
Especially 1 out, maybe 2 outs, you take a chance.
For sure, 2 outs, you're gonna, you know, what do you got to lose there? But you got your best hitters coming up.
Let's see how many fastballs Eric Hosmer gets in this at bat. He just saw a slider. Rodon struck him out with a slider in the first inning. Got him to 1 and 2 with a slider in the third inning, and then tried to sneak a fastball by him, and Hosmer drove in a run. I wouldn't be surprised if Hosmer doesn't see 1 fastball, at least not a hittable fastball. 2 sliders in a row, 1 ball and 1 strike. The old saying, don't try and surprise a fastball hitter with a fastball.
That's not going to work. Here, same situation. Put it out there in the same spot. Haas will have to discipline himself.
Three straight sliders. That one had a little different tilt to it. Missouri Lottery Fox Tracks. Only one of the sliders has been in the strike zone. Royals so far today against Rodon are 1 for 7 with runners in scoring position.
There's a little bug flying out over there. Distract the vision.
The 1 hit the Royals got with a runner in scoring position was from Hosmer in the third inning. 4 straight sliders.
Well, in this situation, as a pitcher, you know that you've got a guy at the plate that's paid to drive in runs. He's a guy that wants to drive the ball. He doesn't want to look on the on-deck circle to Salvador Perez and say, hey, these are your runs out here. He wants to drive them in himself. So as a pitcher, you play off that aggressiveness. You play off of that style of hitting.
Five straight sliders.
You were right, Rhino. He's not wanting any part of that straight fastball, and Avila's going to go talk to him a little bit about this now.
6 at bats for Hosmer in the first 2 games of the series, and he's driven in 5.
One thing about a slider, you throw too many sliders in a row, you leave one up in the middle part of the plate, and oftentimes hitter does a lot of damage on it.
Yeah, now he could really mess with Haas and throw him an inside heater right here to set up another slider away. Maybe Avila's talking about that.
He almost needs to.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. So 6 pitches in this plate appearance, 5 sliders. The 1 fastball he gets is nowhere near hittable.
That's purpose pitch. You get that hitter backed off like that, sets up that slider away. Be shocked if he throws another heater here.
Slider, and Rodon looked at Alcides Escobar, holds him at third, and now there are 2 down. So 7 pitches, 6 sliders. That might have been the most hittable one.
It was. Haas took one earlier, but still good try. Would have got, gets it by the mound. He gets a run in. Sure, they're talking right now a little bit something about first base being open and Paulo coming up, but you know, you're not going to throw another runner out there, are you, Monty?
No, you're going to attack. You want to take care of business.
Exactly.
Zach Putnam just begins to warm up, so that trip to the mound might have 2 objectives: to pass along whatever Don Cooper wanted to Rodon and give Putnam some time to warm up. Salvi walked in the 2nd inning and struck out in the 3rd.
And this hadn't been a real clean game as far as efficiency for Rodon. He's 103 pitches, not even through 5 innings yet.
In on his hands. Salvi has a 12-game hitting streak, and he has a hit in 16 of his last 17 games. Broken bat ground ball to Saladino, and that's the inning. The Royals leave runners at 2nd and 3rd, and well over 100 pitches. Carlos Rodon has given up 1 run in 5 innings. At least weather-wise, tough day in Kansas City on the scoreboard as the White Sox lead 7-1. Remember to vote for the Royals Player of the Month at one of the 7 Rally House locations in the KC metro area. All participants will be entered to win a majestic prize pack. White Sox will have Garcia, Saladino, and Eaton coming up in the top of the 6th inning. And remember, Royals fans, if you can't watch the games on TV, you can now stream games live on your mobile device. Just go to the App Store and download the free Fox Sports Go app, log in, and stream the Royals wherever you go. Popped up. Eric Hosmer in front of the camera bay takes care of Abisail Garcia, who has driven in 3 of the 7 Chicago White Sox runs today. So right now, Yordano Ventura's #1 objective is just to give the Royals as many innings as possible, and he gets 1 out on 1 pitch. Tyler Saladino on an 0-2 pitch in the 2nd inning hit a 3-run home run. And Ventura came back to strike him out with a fastball in the 4th inning.
He would qualify as an unlikely hero today coming in.
On the ground to Cuthbert. Diving stop in time for the second out. Let's take a look at an AT&T high-speed replay.
This will be Chesler Cuthbert doing his best Joe Randa imitation over at third base. I like how he gets on his feet quick and gets rid of it.
No problem. Routine. Ball gets to you quicker at third base. You got some time.
That play reminds me of something that Joe told me that Richie Dower taught him, and that is, if you're going to play close to the bag, you either need to be one step behind third or one step in front of third. Otherwise, on a play like that, you land right on the bag.
How about this inning?
And then maybe you're not so fast getting up after a belly flop on third base. So with the help of Cuthbert's defense, Ventura has a very quick top of the 6th inning. Has really hurt Yordano Ventura today. The very bottom of the order, the 8 and 9 hitters, have hit 2 home runs and driven in 6, and they've scored 3 times. And Chicago now turns it over to their bullpen with a 7-1 lead in the bottom of the 6th inning. This is right-hander Zach Putnam on for the 18th time this year.
He's done a nice job. Strikeouts to innings pitched. He's averaging 1 per inning. Opponents hitting .239, and he's had just a 1.59 ERA in his past 14 games, so he's been a guy that Ventura can rely on, especially with a big lead.
Our Sonic Slam inning contestant is Ed Mancione from KCMO.
Close enough.
If the Royals hit a home run out of the park in this inning, Ed wins $100. That's because we had a winner last night with an Eric Hosmer home run fouled away by Paulo Orlando. If the Royals hit a grand slam out of the park, Ed wins $25,000 from Sonic and the Royals. Paulo extended his hitting streak with a single to right in the 2nd inning. He's also lined to right. Good changeup.
And another backswing that hit Avila. Now this one didn't hurt as much, but still got a tap. He might think about scooting back a little. Split finger. See if he touches his helmet here. Well, Putnam 88-92 with his fastball. See, he sinks it.
Nice play by Frazier on the left side. 1 away. Let's go to Joel.
All right, guys, time for our University of Kansas Hospital injury report and positive news regarding Kendrys Morales. Actually hurt his hand swinging in his last game that he played in Minnesota, and it is the middle finger right hand, right about where the knuckle is, the top knuckle where the finger meets the hand, sprained, but he is now improving, full range of motion. He has not been swinging a bat. They're expecting and hoping at least that he starts to swing tomorrow and get him back in the lineup soon, hopefully next week, guys.
And that's why Brett Eibner was called up. Royals needed a bat with Kendrys Morales unavailable. Cuthbert is 0 for 2. One of those outs was a fly out to the warning track in right field. And Putnam is ahead, no balls, 2 strikes.
Well, quite a contrasting styles between Rodon and this young man here. He's got a sink and cutter to that fastball. Slider and a split finger, not as overpowering. Tough to elevate him unless he elevates that sinker. Ground ball guy.
Too high
by design.
While we have a moment, we want to wish a special happy birthday to Chuck Hawk.
Chuck,
long time member of the Royals clubhouse crew, and for the last several years the visiting clubhouse manager. All of his assistants came rushing up to the press dining room before the game today, pleading with us to wish him a happy birthday. So happy birthday, Chuck.
There you go, Chuck. Even though he's on the other side, I believe he's still got a ring. He deserves it.
2 down, bottom of the 6th inning. Tomorrow's another Family Fun Day Sunday presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Before the game, kids can enjoy face painters and entertainment in the outfield experience and pregame player autographs on top of the Royals dugout. And of course, after the final out, kids 14 and under can round the bases like a big leaguer in the Skippy Fun Run. That's tomorrow. Brett Eibner has fouled to first and flied to left. No balls and 2 strikes. Broken bat and caught by Saladino out in shallow left field. 3 up, 3 down for the Royals in the bottom of the 6th.
Royals 7-1. Joel Goldberg at Kauffman Stadium. As Panera takes us around the league, how about Toronto? They have stormed back to tie it at 8 apiece. Detroit and Oakland just underway. Same for New York and Tampa. And Baltimore and Cleveland, who's a half a game back of the White Sox. Our Northtown Mazda game break. Hud will tell you that he laid that bat down. What's the expression, Hud?
Do not disturb.
Do not disturb sign was definitely on for that double 14-game hitting streak for Ben Zobrist.
So if the bat is kind to Ben, Ben is kind to the bat.
Whenever he makes solid contact, he always sets the bat down. Now, when he doesn't, he throws it down like everybody else. Ball's hit well.
And Lorenzo Cain is not able to catch up to it. That's the third hit for Austin Jackson, and he's going to dig for 3. Close. Out.
How about that? That looked like a phantom tag by Cuthbert. I didn't think there was any way they'd get him. How about that 8-6-5 put out there that was nicely done. What a tag by Cuthbert. It's pretty smooth. You barely even saw it. Jackson, good hitting form, is able to wait on it and drive it the opposite field. Cain picks it up off that wall, gets it to Escobar. Escobar into Cuthbert right here, and he wasn't near the bag. His right foot overslid. Watch, his right foot doesn't even get to the base. And he put the tag on him before he even touched it. Great tag. See, watch that right foot. Right foot misses the bag. That's the problem. If he goes directly to third, he's safe.
And you can't fault Will Little, the home plate umpire, for being out of position. He was closer to third base than Austin Jackson was.
Right. That's on Jackson there.
Ventura's looking for it. So's Omar Infante, and Alcides Escobar rescues Omar Infante, coming over from shortstop, sliding in for the catch.
Wow. You got an inning where the Royals, it's rare they don't catch a ball. They made 2 errors in 1 inning on back-to-back hitters. And now this inning, they're pulling out their normal game. It's tough. We talked about the sun, Infante, but watch Escobar. He's watching him. He's drifting that way. He's keeping an eye. You can tell it. Infante doesn't have it, and he just took charge. That ball would have dropped for a base hit. Escobar, I mean, Infante wasn't even close. Guess maybe you better take those shades off from the back of his hat, put them on. Want to cost his pitcher another run.
At the moment, the sun is behind a big white cloud, so no issue with the sun. But on a day where it's been scattered clouds, this game has been in the bright sunlight one moment and in the shadows the next moment.
Well, you know, you cover yourself. If you miss a ball when you have your glasses on, then it's okay, you missed it. But when you don't have your glasses on and you miss one, it looks worse.
Infante down to a knee. Well, Yordano Ventura finishes with 2 scoreless innings, and he gives the Royals 7 innings, looking for a positive. six as they come up in the bottom of the 7th inning. Royals general manager Dayton Moore has been nominated for the Sports Impact of the Year award. That's for the K-Love Fan Awards occurring next month in Nashville. You can help Dayton bring home the award by going to KLoveFanAwards.com and voting today. Voting is open now until Tuesday.
Yeah, let's let him vote him in. Well, you know, when Monty was up here with us earlier in the game, he talked about Ventura and how he would like to see him finish strong to try to develop something positive going into his next start. And he looked pretty good the last few innings. One positive is he hadn't walked a batter today.
Hard hit by Infante and a nice play at third by Frazier. Infante is 0 for 2 with a walk today. He's not as thick, but Todd Frazier, his mannerisms and the way he plays third base reminds me a little bit of Scott Rowland.
How about it? Smooth.
This is the 2nd inning for Zach Putnam. He retired the Royals in order in the bottom of the 6th after Carlos Rodon went 5 innings and gave up 1 run. Alcides Escobar is 1 for 3 with a 5th inning single. One and one.
He's got a good sinker, and hitter's going to hit the top of that ball. The way that ball bottoms out, this guy's reliable.
Putnam's father, Steve, is a neuropsychologist. Do you know what that is, Hud?
Not exactly.
Well, a neuropsychologist studies the structure and function of the brain related to psychological processes and overt behaviors.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, me too. Escobar is down on strikes, and that's 2 for Putnam. And now Merrifield 1 for 3. Now available at the Majestic Team Store as a DVD Blu-ray combo pack. Royalty Reigns, a comprehensive look at the 2015 World Champion Royals, from the story of how the club was assembled by General Manager Dayton Moore and Royals ownership to key moments during the regular and postseason. Royalty Reigns recalls everything that made the 2015 Royals club worth remembering, and that's at the Majestic Team Store behind the Diamond Club here at Kauffman Stadium.
General Manager Dayton Moore, quick to compliment other people around him. Takes very little credit. One of those guys is the senior advisor to Dayton is Donnie Williams. He's from Paragould, Arkansas, and you know we got a lot of fans there, but the biggest fans there are Marianne Williams, Celeste Williams, Maddie Holdridge, and Sue Hale, who all play cards in front of the Royals game, and they watch that game intently. And I talked to Donnie. I said, Donnie, how's Marianne doing? He says, great, Hud. I said, I'd like to give him a little shout out and thank him for pulling for the Royals. Glad you're watching. There you go, ladies.
They love the Royals. They love to play cards, and they love to study the structure and function of the brain related to psychological processes and overt behaviors.
Don't we all?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is that what you told your high school teacher? that you wanted to be when you grew up?
Not once.
Good hustle.
6 up, 6 down for the Royals against Zach Putnam. Dodge. Visit Dodge.com or your local dealer today. And by Steel Outdoor Power Equipment. Find a servicing Steel dealer at steeldealers.com or search STIHL. Water looked inviting. Kind of day you might want to jump in a swimming pool or jump in the lake, but don't jump in the fountains.
I was just going to say, it is a great day to get in the water, but not the fountains.
Chin Ming Wong takes over in the top of the 8th inning to face Jose Abreu, Brett Lawrie, and Alex Avila.
2.70 ERA, he'll take it. And you know, Wong, he gets a lot of the mop-up role for the Royals, but if you ask him, he's thrilled to be a big league pitcher again. May not be a prominent spot, but you got to have a guy like him to come in, eat up some innings. It's not like he's got a 5 ERA like a lot of relievers do.
And he's pitched well recently, well, more than recently, in his last 10 outings. His ERA is under 1.6. Ooh, Cuthbert on a hot shot from Abreu. High throw. Hosmer handles it, and Abreu is 0 for 4.
And that's what he does. Sinker ballers down, brings the ground balls. Cuthbert having a nice day outside of that one misplay. And that was his first error of the year earlier in the game.
A strike to Brett Lawrie. On the ground to Cuthbert again, and he is unable to come up with it with a diving play, and Lawrie is 2 for 4. On the topic of the Royals bullpen, Royals today welcome back Chris Young from the disabled list. He was out with a forearm strain, so Brian Flynn has been optioned to AAA Omaha. Chris Young, for the time being, will pitch out of the bullpen. So Danny Duffy and Dylan G remain in the rotation, but Ned Yost did say before the game that he fully expects Chris Young to rejoin the starting rotation at some point this season. Low to Alex Avila. He has 2 hits and 2 runs scored. Was batting 182 when the game started, and now up over 200. 2 runs driven in for Alex Avila all year. 58 at bats.
Well, you know, in situations where runners are in scoring position, Avila needs to be a little bit more aggressive. Back in the bases were loaded back in Chicago against the Royals in the last series. The bases were loaded. He took 2 pitches and that was it. Didn't swing the bat at all. And loaded up. It's almost like he was looking for a walk.
One and two. Late movement. Called third strike. 2 down in the 8th inning.
It's a great spot. Good 2-seam run.
That brings up Avisail Garcia. He turned in our Dodge drive of the game back in the 4th inning. And that Dodge drive of the game turned a 4-1 White Sox lead into a 6-1 White Sox lead.
Yeah, and you know that ball, it left in a hurry. 108 miles an hour on the hit speed.
And then that guy was sentenced to a long prison term for reaching over the railing. 1 ball and 1 strike.
Well, you know, he didn't actually plunge.
Oh, he's back.
Hey, hey. Sir, it's my wife's 30th.
I'll take that ball.
Okay.
Well, which ball? The one that he got out of the fountains or the one that you have?
No, the one that he got out of the fountains. The minute he got it, he handed it to his wife, and then they came after him. But I didn't see him go in. He didn't take the plunge. I think he just leaned over the rail.
But the SWAT team came in and they were escorting him out of the stadium there for a while.
Sir, yes. All right. We're glad you're back. Yes, sir. You got your ball. Happy birthday to your wife. I'm glad you're here.
I mean, you can't arrest a guy when in his heart he was just trying to get a souvenir for his wife on her 30th birthday.
Right.
So cooler heads and wiser heads prevailed when it comes to Royal Security.
That's right.
Hats off to Royal Security.
There you go.
with the Royals down by 6 to the White Sox. MLB.TV Premium is the #1 live streaming sports service. You can watch every out-of-market game live and in HD at home, in the office, or on the go. You'll get real-time highlights, live look-ins, pitch-by-pitch tracking, and more. And MLB.TV Premium also includes free at-bat premium subscription. So sign up today, not tomorrow, today. Zach Putnam has 2 perfect innings out of the White Sox bullpen. He'll get Kane, Hosmer, and Perez. One ball and 1 strike. Lorenzo has an infield single and a double.
Got a guy like him that constantly puts that sinker in the bottom half of the zone. You know, you're going to hit it, but you're going to hit it to somebody usually, or hope you find a hole. He rarely elevates.
Lorenzo's not happy with that last call, but we realized in the first inning that if it's close, it's a strike. Now that's the strike that some are suggesting should be eliminated. I mean, that wasn't in the grid, but even the ones that are on the edge in the bottom part of the grid, that the strike zone should be raised.
And purpose being speed the game up?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me.
I can understand, and we talked about this, you know, with Joel last week, and I can understand if they want to raise the whole strike zone, the bottom and the top. Adam Eaton goes back and makes the play. But I remember the days in the late 90s into 2000, 2001 with the smaller strike zone. That didn't speed up the games at all. I mean, there was more offense if that's what they're looking for, but I mean, 320, 330 was common.
You want to speed up the game, make the strike zone larger, make the guy swing the bat, put it in play.
Zach Duke comes on with 1 out in the bottom of the 8th. That sign, Hud. I'll take that ball. She wants to meet you. There's 2 Rexes, by the way, on that sheet, just to make the point.
Well, I don't know if I want any part of that right there. That sign. That's for sure. I'd love to meet her, but it's a long walk out there.
It's a long walk.
A very long.
Zach Duke is brought on for revenge. This is a revenge appearance, Hud. Zach Duke probably said to Robin Ventura, I want another shot at Eric Hosmer. Because last night, Zach Duke came on and faced 1 batter in the middle of the Royals' 4-run 7th inning. And Eric Hosmer hit a 2-run single against him to put the Royals in front. Going with the little Ichiro Suzuki swing.
Yeah. Haas, he'll welcome it. So I'm not going to give in to him.
Hosmer drove in a run, the only run for the Royals in the 3rd inning. Also stole a base in that inning.
Ooh, you left that one up for him. That side angle that he comes from with his arm angle there, that's tough. It makes that left-handed hitter pull that shoulder out, but Haas was right on that one. It was a pitch that was hittable. Come back in there with heater. Any idea about Zach Duke's dad and what he did?
I don't think he was a neuropsychologist, as far as I know.
That's a great.
I could tell you
that's a great occupation.
About his in-laws. After
Yeah?
the 2013 season, he was not with a team, and he was sitting by the pool at his in-laws' house and remembered skipping stones on a farm pond as a kid and thought, you know what, maybe I could get back to the big leagues if I started throwing sidearm. And this time he gets Hosmer. So 2 down in the 8th inning. That's a true story.
Wow.
And so he thought, well, what I was doing as an overhand pitcher and longtime prospect in the Pirates organization and never really panned out the way he and the Pirates wanted to. Started throwing sidearm, and in 2014 he got himself back on the map. And after that offseason, the White Sox signed him to a 3-year contract.
Oh, nice little dream.
How about that for
vision?
Overt behaviors.
I like that. But you know, so it's not about the arm angle, it's about getting outs. Wasn't getting any outs on top. He says, you know what? And that's a tough angle for hitters. Righties have a little bit better opportunity because they can see the ball, and the breaking stuff comes into the hitter, and it's easier to hit that. But for a left-handed specialist, Zach Duke, he's here for a reason. Gets outs.
This could be Salvi's last shot to extend his hitting streak. 3 balls and no strikes. Hitting streak at 12 games. His career high is 17. He did that in 2012. Three and 1. Abreu goes out, Laurie goes out, and Laurie makes the play. And now White Sox pitchers have set down the last 11 Royals. 7-1 Chicago to the 9th. Time brought to you by Miller Lite.
Why don't we show a couple of nice defensive plays? All right. Cuthbert continues to show range to his right, to his left, coming in. No different today. And this nice relay. Lorenzo Cain. 8-6-5. Phantom tag. Got him. That was a beauty. And now Escobar picking up Infante there. Lost the ball in the sun. And that's a very spectacular routine play.
We've seen Escobar do that a few times. That's got to be an extremely difficult play for an infielder. A high pop-up, looking up into the sky as you go into a feet-first slide. I mean, your body's going down, but you have to keep your head up.
Right, but you know the angle, as you see Infante with his glasses on now. That angle he had, though, he was directing his body towards the right field foul pole, so he was looking away from the sun. That's a good angle he took. And there's nothing worse, really. Not just the guy who loses the ball in the sun, but for Escobar, he panics and goes, "Oh no, I got to get over there."
Oh, 2 on Tyler Saladino, the number 9 hitter. He had a 3-run home run with 2 outs, and they count 0-2 in the White Sox 4-run second inning. Cuthbert is out, Escobar is out, and it's going to drop. Saladino is 2 out of 4.
I guarantee you when that ball left Saladino's bat, he says, "Fall. I want to knock." Been hitting some balls hard this year and caught every one of them. He'll take that one. Good effort. Just no one can get to that one.
And that brings up Adam Eaton. Adam Eaton typically is a thorn in the Royals side. But this year, he is 3 out of 18 against the Royals. He has not scored a run. He has not driven in a run. So overall, having a pretty good year so far, but the Royals have really pitched him well.
Monty had a few words for guys like that. He uses a grommet or a guy who's a gnat. He's a flea. You know, they pest. They pest you. And, you know, they're pesty and they bother you. And this guy's a good player. Hustles. Whenever you can keep him down like that, you're doing something well.
Two balls, 1 strike. Yordan Ventura allowed all 7 runs. He did give the Royals 7 innings. He did not allow an earned run over his last 3 innings. And then Chien-Ming Wang took over in the 8th. 2 balls, 2 strikes. And if Wang can finish off the White Sox here in the 9th inning, that's a moral victory for the Royals, in that they allow 7 runs and only have to use 2 pitchers.
I agree.
Popped up. Wang wants it.
Oh, watch it. Ow. Oh man, here come Cuthbert. And he looked like he gave Salvi a Charlie horse in his thigh. Oh man. I thought Cuthbert was looking at Salvi and was going to back off, but he just kept coming for that ball. Collisions haven't been working so far this year,
especially in foul ground.
hear the word contusion a lot,
which is just a fancy medical term for a bruise.
It looked like hit Charlie him right in the middle of his quad. But we thought Moose had a contusion too.
Well, you're right, Hud. It did look like he went into the thigh.
Okay, with his forearm and elbow right there. And you hope that that left leg was off the ground so it didn't, the spike wasn't caught, so it didn't affect the knee, but we'll see.
And Salvi is rubbing his left thigh as he gets to his feet. But he's going to have to be helped off the field.
Well, it looks like more steps he takes. He's able to walk it off. Hopefully, we'll see.
Probably scared him more than anything else.
Yep, I think so.
I mean, it's one thing to get hit like that, and Cuthbert is coming in with his left shoulder and elbow, but to get hit like that when you're not expecting it,
yeah, see
and it did bend his knee back some.
We'll see. So whenever there's a collision and your foot is planted in the ground, so just wondered if he's able. It looked like he just was able to get off of his left foot before that impact. Well, we knew that Chien-Ming Wang wasn't going to make the play.
Well, you know, I was thinking that. I don't want to make light of this because we have had some fun with pitchers not being allowed to catch pop-ups. You know, then maybe all teams need to start working on that with pitchers. That was an easy play for Chien-Ming Wang. But you got a catcher running out from home. You got a third baseman sprinting down from third. And if Chien-Ming Wang feels like he's allowed to make that play, he just calls everybody off. He's going straight to the ball. Otherwise, you got two guys coming in from the side.
Well, the way the game is changing so much, you know, we're way away from the old school days. Why not start mixing your pitchers in? Pop-ups. That's an old term in baseball. Don't let the pitcher catch a pop-up. Old school. Now you could hear a pin drop at the K.
Two 2-0 on Austin Jackson. That's a delicate area for Salvador Perez. Remember, in 2012 in spring training, he had surgery on that left knee, so we hope for the best. But again, getting back to the fear element of it, getting hit that hard and in an area where he's already had surgery. So a player gets hit in an area where he's been hurt before, and it's easy in their mind right away to assume the worst. Three and one on Austin Jackson. Line to center field, and Kane runs it down, 2 away. What would happen, just out of curiosity, Hud, you played some third base. What would happen on a play like that? And I'm not pinning this on Wong at all. It's a 7-1 game. It's a foul ball. And just take the Royals out of the equation here. Any pitcher. If any pitcher just starts screaming, "I've got it," on a play like that, do the catcher and third baseman even listen to him?
It just depends on the location and where you are and where the play is. Lots of times the third baseman or catcher, they can't even get to a play like that, so they're going to yield and let the guy catch the ball. But on that play there, the ball wasn't hit all that high. Both guys are running. Cuthbert has priority over Salvi, so he was just coming after it. But I heard Salvi's voice more than I did Cuthbert. And Cuthbert on a full head of steam there. Sometimes as you're going for the ball, you'll glance down and see where the catcher is, and you can see that he's watching the ball. You might back off, but it was similar to Moose and Gordon. Moose saw Alex at the last minute, but it was too late.
By that score since the 5th inning. Coming up after the game, Boulevard Royals Live, and the topics for Joel and Monty have changed in priority over the past inning or so. It was going to be about Yordano Ventura and his outing today, allowing 7 runs in 7 innings. The pitching of Carlos Rodon, pitching out of trouble to keep the Royals offense down, and that's been a challenge lately for American League pitchers to keep the Royals offense down. But now at the top of the list will be Salvador Perez, who was just removed from the game in the top of the 9th inning after a collision with Cheslor Cuthbert. David Robertson will pitch the bottom of the 9th inning, so Drew Butera is now hitting in the number 5 spot. It'll be Paulo Orlando, Cheslor Cuthbert, and Brett Eibner in the bottom of the 9th. Paulo Orlando in the 2nd inning. Single to right field to give him an 11-game hitting streak, adding to his career high. David Robertson is the 4th White Sox pitcher today. Rodon went 5 innings, gave up the 1 run. pitched out of trouble in the second and third innings, but with a high pitch count was only able to go 5. Zach Putnam has picked up the White Sox bullpen today. He went 2 1/3. Zach Duke 2/3 of an inning, and now Robertson, the closer, is just getting some work with a 6-run lead.
He uses a fastball, curveball, occasional changeup.
Down goes Paulo Orlando, 1 away in the bottom of the 9th inning. Today's copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of the Kansas City Royals and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Kansas City Royals Baseball Club. Ryan Lefevre, Rex Hudler with Joe Goldberg and Jeff Montgomery. They're coming up after the final out. Our producer today is Brian Shapiro. Director Steve Kurtenbach. Associate producers Al Broughton, Sam Abramson, Dave Holtzman. As Cuthbert singles with 1 out in the 9th inning, he is 1 for 4. And now Brett Eibner, 0 for 3. All outs in the air. A foul out to first, a line out to left, and a pop out to short. And a chance for him to get an at bat against a big league closer. One and one. Well hit to right field. Adam Eaton is back, and he lost it in the sun. So Eibner's first 2 big league hits are doubles.
Off of a big league closer. I thought that had a chance. Now earlier in the game when the wind was blowing out there, that might have pushed it out, but now the flag's laying down, not doing any wind at all. Good swing. And he thought he might have had a chance with it. Hit midway up the wall. Eaton lost it.
Eibner's father Dan with a big smile on his face, getting a chance to see his son in the big leagues, and he's delivered a double in each of his first 2 big league games. 0-1 on Omar Infante, and Eibner has been the DH last night and today. He is a good defensive outfielder. Of course, you have to be if you're going to come up to the Royals system now, with a great arm. The Houston Astros, when they drafted Eibner out of high school in the 4th round, saw him as a pitcher as much as they did a position player, and he could throw in the 90s. Right now the Royals are using Whit Merrifield and Gerard Dyson in left field and Paulo Orlando in right. Two and one on Infante. 3 balls, 1 strike. Royals did a good job of putting the heat on Rodon in the first 5 innings. Rodon, his final line is 1 run in 5 innings, but he only had 1-1-2-3 inning. Royals had the bases loaded in the 2nd inning. Rodon was able to pitch out of that. Royals had 2 base runners in the 3rd. That's where they scored their run, and they had runners at 2nd and 3rd with 1 out in the 5th inning, and Rodon pitched out of that. And the bases are loaded for Alcides Escobar. And here's that situation again. A closer pitching in a non-save situation, and that's usually when they're at their worst. You figure no pressure, they can go out there and, as we like to say in quotations, to get some work in. But as Monty has shared with us so many times, the intensity of the situation is gone, and the way Monty would put it, in the back of his mind, he felt like his teammates were saying, okay, let's just throw strikes and get out of here, and he wouldn't pitch his game.
Yep. Infante got a breaker his first pitch. Escobar didn't. Heater in. Thought he might throw him a breaker. He's got a big curve. Yeah, the adrenaline's not the same for Robertson.
Not a strike, but boy, that is a pitch with some tight spin.
Yeah, and you know, he's come up with that slider. That's not a curveball. That's a slider. So he's got more than just a power fastball, curve, and change.
One and 2. White Sox coming into today were really struggling to score runs. White Sox were averaging fewer than 3 runs per game over the last week and a half. Meanwhile, the Royals were averaging 7+ runs in their last 4, and the roles have been reversed. 2 and 2 on Escobar. Robin Ventura's team coming into today had lost 12 of 16 games and 5.5 games over their lead in the Central. And a lot of those struggles were connected to a lack of offense. Escobar works a full count. Potential tying run is still in the hole. So if Escobar can reach, the tying run will be on deck. Fans holding out hope today. Over 31,000 are at Kauffman Stadium this afternoon. Inside, Robertson walks in a run.
Cuthbert looking like he's got a little bit of a gait to his trot. So he looks like he's a little bit sore from that collision.
So Robin Ventura doesn't want to burn his closer by having him throw too many pitches in a non-save situation, and he just wants to check on Robertson. Now, of course, a closer cannot create a save situation, because right now, if another pitcher came on, it would be a save situation because the tying run is on deck. But for Robertson, he created it. He cannot get a save.
If you'll remember back to the first week of the season here at home when the Royals were playing the Minnesota Twins, Molitor brings in Glenn Perkins for some work. he ends up throwing 32 pitches. The next night he came in and he was out of gas. We busted him and he went on the DL. So Robin Ventura is not going to let Robertson go much longer if he wants him for tomorrow.
There's that slider for a strike to Merrifield. So Eibner is at third. He doubled. And then the back-to-back walks to two guys who are hard to walk. Infante and Escobar. Escobar gets an RBI with his walk. And now Whit Merrifield, who is 1 for 4 with a double today. One and one.
What a perfect time for your first big league homer. Now we've seen him do quite a few firsts in every young player. Tonight, or this afternoon, he got his first outfield assist on a ball he dropped. Picked it up, got the force at second base.
Two balls and one strike. And really, that's the only pitch he's throwing. That slider slash cutter. There's Lorenzo Cain representing the potential tying run on deck. Merrifield would need to reach for Cain to come to the plate, representing the tying run. Two and two. Tough spot for a hitter.
Yep.
Still 2 and 2.
Right there. Hold off it just a tad. Merrifield wants to be able to cover the outside part of the plate, so he's got to be able to think that way. And that's where Robertson wants to throw it, but he can react in.
Pitch number 25 for Robertson. Grounded off of his glove into shallow right field. That'll get 2 to the plate, and the tying run comes to the plate.
Merrifield going good. He'll pick up a couple more ribbies with that. Line shot that was deflected, and Ventura now, he's between a rock and a hard place. He's saying, now look, my guy's already thrown 25 pitches. That's more than I thought it would take for him to get some work in this afternoon. And now with this happening, there's still one out. He doesn't want to wear him down, so he can't pitch tomorrow in case they need him. So his stomach's starting to churn a little bit here as he knows the Royals can come from behind. They did last night. Their biggest deficit they overcame, 4-run that they've done the whole season. So he knows it's in their DNA, but can they come all the way?
5 consecutive multi-hit games for Whit Merrifield. And now Cain and Robertson. Slider for a strike. Lorenzo has a multi-hit game today. He has Escobar at third. Escobar walked with the bases loaded to get a run home, and now Whit Merrifield has driven in 4 in his last 2 games. Lorenzo has only seen Robertson twice, and Robertson struck him out both times. On the ground to short. Saladino to second base 1, throw to first, and the inning is still alive. Another run scores. So it's 7-5, and now Eric Hosmer comes to the plate, representing the potential tying run.
Now, what's Ventura going to do? You're going to leave him in with a home run threat? Good hustle by Cain. Very good hustle, keeping this inning alive. Drew Butera's on deck. They see that.
And now Hosmer, who's driven in a run, and he has a home run in his career against Robertson. Good take.
I never remember Robertson throw that cutter like that. So this is a new pitch he's brought in. And he's using it a lot today. Crowd here at the Cave, many of them have stayed. They believe.
Right center field. That ball is down. Kane to third. He'll be waved home. Tying run in scoring position.
The Royals keeping the line moving when their closer was coming in supposedly to get some work, and Ventura's going to take him out now at 29 pitches. Cutter in, didn't cut enough. Haas didn't barrel it. If he barrels it, it's a tie game. But plenty of room out there. Outfielders, their backs were against the wall. They're playing no doubles, but it didn't work.
Great pickup by Haas. Great hustle by Lorenzo Cain to keep this inning alive.
Drew Butera will have a chance to tie it when we come back. (7-1), and David Robertson got the first out against the first hitter, and then this happened.
Yeah, just a lousy little one hopper through, thinking, oh, no big deal. But we'll take the double off the wall, scores him to take the walk. Merrifield off the glove. That would have been a double play ball. Cain says, you know what? I'm going to beat out this ball. You're not going to double me up to keep the inning alive. And Hosmer with a nice stroke to right center field for a double. And the fans are on their feet here with 2 outs in the 9th inning.
Tommy Kahnle making just his 4th appearance, and pitches to Drew Butera, who had to take over for Salvador Perez, who was injured in the top of the 9th inning. Down and away, ball 1.
Hey, Kahnle, he's a guy who likes to rear back and throw it, and he wants to impress. That first pitch at 98. He's got a slider and a curve. Butera, one thing, shorten up your swing, just try to put it in play, find a hole. Don't try to hit a big home run, be a hero.
Outfielder's fairly shallow. They want to, on a routine ball, to be able to throw out Hosmer.
.99. 1 ball and 1 strike. Butera choking up.
Yeah.
Like you would. One of the first things you learn against a pitcher who throws hard.
That's right. You got a fastball like that, you're going to use that pitch. Eaton in right field has 7 outfield assists, leads the American League.
Driven to left field. Long run, Cabrera. Tie game. Unbelievable. The Royals have scored 6 in the bottom of the 9th inning. Woo! Aren't you glad you stuck around today?
Drew Butera says, you know what? I'm hoping my buddy Salvi's okay. I'm going to do what Salvi would have done. Bring this crowd to their feet. And the White Sox, who have been struggling the entire month of May, can't believe it.
That says it all. And now the Royals have a chance to put it away. The White Sox are not going to pitch to Paulo Orlando. Whoa! Winning run is at third base.
How about another one of those, please?
Tommy Kahnle wishes he was pitching in 2017 when a new rule is in effect, when you can just put a runner at first base with an intentional walk. And he's got 3 more pitches to go. Noonan.
Hey, look, it may speed the game up, but this is exciting right here. I mean, come on, Kamish. You never know in baseball. Wild pitch could cost you a game. Ooh. And an 87-mile-an-hour intentional pass pitch, that's pretty good.
And Avila is treating this like Kahnle's throwing a 10-carat diamond up there. So Paulo Orlando started this inning innocently with a strikeout against David Robertson. And now, as the 10th man, goes to first with an intentional walk. The scheduled hitter is Cheslor Cuthbert. And Cheslor has chipped in this inning with a single and a run scored. But Ned Yost is going to go with Gerard Dyson. And this is an interesting call because we saw Cheslor appear to be favoring a leg as he scored the first run of this inning. And it was Cuthbert who collided with Salvador Perez in foul ground in the top of the 9th inning.
Gerard Dyson's going to step in. He's 1 for 1 as a pinch hitter off the bench this year. As a matter of fact, it's the only. Well, no, it's not the only pinch hit. Paulo's 2 for 2. Moose is 1 for 1, and so is Gerard Dyson as a pinch hitter. Donnie Cooper, I don't know what he told him, but he probably said keep the ball down, but Dyson likes that. He wants to find a hole.
Orlando runs, and Avila just saved the game. 1 ball and no strikes.
Life is back here at the K after Salvador Perez, their star catcher, all-star Gold Glover, left with and some type of injury. The place was quiet for a while. Now they're back as Drew Butera, filling in for Salvi, stepped up with a big-time double.
1 ball and 1 strike to Dyson. Well, when the inning started, I had pointed out that the White Sox had been struggling to score runs in the last 10 days, not even averaging 3 a game. The Royals, in their last 4 games, are averaging 7 runs per game, and they had 1 coming into this inning, and here they are at 7 runs, and they've tied it. And now the White Sox are going to put Dyson on.
Oh man, this is an adventure.
They're going to face the rookie in just his second major league game, Brett Eibner. And they're not going to let Dyson have a chance for his first ever career walk-off hit. It's going to go to the young man with the chance.
So Brett Eibner comes to the plate, and before he went to the plate, he had a little chat with Alcides Escobar.
Esky, slow it down. Yeah, slow it down. Make it be in slow motion and come through for us and get you a consecutive Salvi splash. Of course, it won't be given by Salvi.
It's hard to tell this to a guy who's playing in just his second big league game, and he's batting with the bases loaded in the 9th inning. But the pressure is not on Brett Eibner right here. The pressure is on Tommy Kahnle.
Exactly right.
Looked like a cross-up. I don't think Avila was ready for that pitch. I mean, this game is going into extra innings. The Royals have already scored 6 in the bottom of the 9th. All the runs charged to White Sox closer David Robertson. So Eibner should have a smile on his face like he does right now.
Might want to take a strike.
Borderline pitch.
That's something that Eibner's going to have to think about now. I mean, because he has an upright stance. He's standing straight up, and that 97-98 belt high looks good, but it's not. You can't square that up too well. Look at Ned. Ned's into this one.
Two and one. Boy, Brett Eibner, he's got to say to himself, this ball has to be right down the middle of the plate because Kahnle is all over the place.
Right. And there's Esky just trying to say, hey, look, just bring it down. Calm down.
Again, up and borderline. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Let's see where these pitches are.
Well, look at they're out of the zone and you can't hit them. I'm telling you, you can foul them back, but that's the decision you have to make against a guy who throws this hard and loves that 4-seamer up in the zone. It's going to go right back with it.
.99 miles an hour.
I mean, he was fortunate just to get a piece of that one.
And to add a little bit of difficulty, I mean, you're facing a guy in the mid-90s, and we've been telling you this since the first inning. The sun has been in and out of the clouds all day. So one pitch, it's bright. The next pitch, everyone's in the shadows as Eibner's trying to pick up a pitch from Kahnle. Another foul ball. So back into the shadows again. Kahnle came on for Robertson. He gave up the double to Butera to tie it, and then he intentionally walked Paulo Orlando and Jarrod Dyson. Another foul ball, and that time Kahnle went with a slider. Brett Eibner was drafted in the second round by the Royals in 2010. Drafted with a broken hand. Then he tore a ligament in his thumb. Then he had shoulder problems. Then he had a torn abdominal muscle. It has taken him 6 years to get to the big leagues, and in his second big league game, he has a chance to win it. Just outside, and it's a full count.
Pretty close on that one. He wasn't looking down there, I guarantee you.
HUD between Robertson and Kahnle. This is the 50th pitch of the inning. 5-0.
Unbelievable.
Fouled away. And that was the most hittable pitch he's had in this at bat. With 1 out, Cuthbert singled, Eibner doubled. This is Eibner's second at bat in this inning. Infante walked. Escobar walked with the bases loaded. Merrifield a 2-run single. Kane an RBI force out. Hosmer RBI double. Butera RBI double. And now back-to-back intentional walks. A 6-run bottom of the 9th. Line, base hit right field. It was worth the wait for Brett Eibner. A stunning, absolutely stunning 7-run bottom of the 9th inning.
Fan, if you're a White Sox fan, you have some indigestion. Second big league game. First walk-off hit. He's going good.
What an at-bat, by the way.
I mean, to tell you, it started with a nice little inning where Robertson was going to come in and get a little bit of work.
It's the first time the Royals have come back from 6 runs in 4 years. Brett Eibner and his family will never, ever forget today. Let's go down to Joel.
All right, we've got Drew Butera, Brett Eibner, and probably some Gatorade buckets coming. My goodness, what a comeback in this one. Brett, tell me about the emotions right now. That felt good. Well, it's been an interesting day to say the least. Welcome again, Brett Eibner, to the big leagues. Tell me about your emotions on day 2, because day 2 seems a little better than day 1.
Yeah, just had to get the first one out of the way, and it's just like any other game. And went out here and just tried to put the best at bats I could together and help this team out.
How are the nerves compared to that at bat in the 9th inning, where this incredible comeback has happened and you've got the chance to be the final hero, versus your first at bat in the big leagues that you've been waiting for so long?
I was actually really calm. I might have taken a couple big swings early, but I settled down and battled back into the count and got a pitch that I could handle.
I assume that growing up, those are the plays you dream of?
Yeah, I couldn't draw that up any better myself.
All right, congratulations, Brett Eibner. 2 days, 2 Gatorade buckets. Go enjoy it, and we'll bring in Drew Butera right now. Brett, great job.
Thank you.
Drew, you've been around this game for a long time as a player and growing up with your dad as a major leaguer. Have you ever seen anything like that?
No, but I've never seen a team like this. You know, we never quit. The fans never quit, and you know, I'm glad we could do it today.
This game and this place went from being very quiet for understandable reasons to feeling like it was a World Series game with the energy in here. So you come up to the plate for your first at-bat, first plate appearance of the game. Take us through what you saw and your emotions.
You know, just looking for something up out of the zone. Kind of thinking about Salvi too. He always comes clutch in those situations. So I was like, what would Salvi do?
That's good advice to take, and that leads me to the last and obvious question. It's been a rough week for you guys, losing 2 All-Stars last Sunday, and I know that the health and the situation with Salvi is very much in everyone's mind. We'll get news on that later, but what's your thought as a guy that comes in and replaces him when you see a guy like Salvi go down?
It's tough, but you know, Salvi's a warrior. You know, he's a big, tough guy, and I'm sure he'll be fine.
Drew Butera, congratulations on an absolutely epic comeback. Great job.
Thank you.
That is Drew Butera, Brett Eibner, a lot of water, a lot of Gatorade, and I'll tell you what, it feels and tastes good, Ryan.
I can only imagine, Joel. And by the way, the Royals at the moment are in a first-place tie with the Chicago White Sox. Brett Eibner in his second big league game, his first walk-off. And for the first time in Royals history, they are down by 6 going into the 9th, and they win. Stick around. We got a few things to talk about.